What you are about to hear is something that most people are completely ignoring. While millions of ordinary Cubans are sitting in total darkness, rationing rice, and struggling to survive, a group of wealthy American activists just flew down to Cuba and checked into a 5-star luxury hotel. And they called it solidarity. They called it fighting for the people. This is the story that the mainstream media does not want to talk about. And tonight on Pulse America News, your anchor Kundi is breaking it all down for you. Let us start with something that tells you everything you need to know about these people. While the entire island of Cuba was experiencing a total blackout, while families had no electricity, no clean water, and barely enough food to get through the day, these activists were enjoying room service, maid service, swimming pools, and a mint on their pillow every single night. 5 stars, generators humming, air conditioning running, cold drinks, warm food, all of it. And they sat there in that comfort and told the world they were showing solidarity with the suffering people of Cuba. You cannot make this up. You genuinely cannot. This was not a quiet trip either. These activists flew in with cameras. They posted on social media. They filmed themselves saying things like they were there to support the Cuban people and that the policies affecting Cuba were cruel, inhumane, and barbaric. Strong words from people who could not tell you what the average Cuban earns in a month. And here's a hint, it is nowhere near the cost of those designer glasses one of the men in the group was wearing. Those glasses alone cost around $1,400. The average Cuban worker earns a fraction of that in an entire year. But sure, solidarity. The group is known for being far-left activists who have spent decades protesting American foreign policy while benefiting fully from American freedoms, American wealth, and American comfort. One of the co-founders of this group is reportedly independently wealthy, having come from a family with significant real estate money. Another co-founder is connected to a husband who is a tech industry figure with deep ties to overseas interests. So when they talk about fighting the powerful, what they really mean is they enjoy fighting from a position of power, while everyone around them suffers. This is what Kundi on Pulse America News calls safari activism. You fly into a country, you stay somewhere nice, you take pictures with locals who are too polite or too afraid to tell you the truth. You film a couple of emotional videos, and then you fly back home, back to your comfortable life, completely unchanged. And you get to walk around feeling like a hero. The people you claimed to help are still suffering, but your follower count went up, so mission accomplished. Here's the deeper problem with what happened in Cuba. The activists who went there were not just oblivious, they were actively feeding the narrative that the Cuban government wants the world to believe. The Cuban government has always pointed to American policy as the reason for the country's suffering, and when wealthy American activists fly in and repeat that message, they're doing the government's job for them, free of charge, while eating food that most Cubans will never taste. Cuba's economic crisis is not new. It did not start last year or the year before. The island has been struggling for decades, and the reason is not complicated. When a government controls everything, owns everything, plans everything, and decides everything, the result is always the same: shortages, poverty, darkness, literally and figuratively. The people who built small businesses, who tried to create something, who pushed back against the system, they either left or they were silenced. The ones who stayed have been living under those conditions for generations. But the activists cannot say that, because if they say that, the entire point of the trip falls apart. If they admit that Cuba's problems are caused by its own government, then there is no story. There is no villain to point at across the ocean. There is no excuse to post dramatic videos from the hotel balcony. So instead, they point fingers at America, collect their content, and fly home first class.
One man filmed himself holding a tiny coffee cup and speaking directly to the camera about what he called the dichotomy between poverty and wealth on the island. He described staying in a luxury hotel as something that was, quote, messing him up. Very powerful stuff, very emotional, very dramatic, and completely meaningless, because when the camera stopped rolling, he went back inside the five-star hotel, ordered dinner, and presumably slept very well. Here is what real solidarity would look like. Real solidarity would mean staying where actual Cubans stay, eating what actual Cubans eat, going without electricity for a night the way actual Cubans do every single day, talking to the people who have been jailed, silenced, and punished for daring to speak out against the government, interviewing the families who lost relatives trying to reach safety on makeshift rafts. That is the Cuba that these activists did not show you, because that Cuba does not fit the story they came to tell. The musicians who performed at this event, an Irish rap group, used their platform at the concert to chant about issues happening in the Middle East. They were performing in a country where people cannot afford to eat, where children grow up without consistent electricity, where basic medical supplies are scarce, and the message they chose to deliver was about a conflict on the other side of the world, not a single word about the Cubans sitting in the dark outside the venue walls.
That is not activism. That is tourism with a political soundtrack. And the Cubans outside that venue knew it. The people actually living through the crisis knew exactly what was happening. A group of well-fed, well-dressed foreigners flew in, threw a party inside a generator-powered building, and told each other how brave they were. Then they went back to their hotels and the lights outside stayed off. What is most frustrating about all of this is not just the hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is everywhere. What is frustrating is that these trips actually do harm. When activists meet with government officials and praise the system, they are giving that government exactly what it wants: international legitimacy. The message that reaches the world is not about the suffering people. The message is that outsiders came and approved of what they saw. That makes it harder, not easier, for real reform to happen. One of the panel guests on a political discussion show made a sharp observation about this. They pointed out that when these groups bring aid or supplies, the corrupt government controls what happens to those supplies. The food, the medicine, the resources do not automatically reach the people who need them. Everything goes through the system. And the system has always been the problem. So not only are these trips not helping, in some cases they are actively making things worse. There is also something deeply revealing about who goes on these trips and how they fund them. This particular group did not open the trip to the general public. It was an invite-only gathering funded through outside organizations. So the people who got to go were already connected, already trusted within that political circle, and already willing to say the right things on camera. It was not a humanitarian mission. It was a curated experience designed to produce specific content that supports a specific narrative. And the Cuban people had no say in any of it. Here on Pulse America News, Kundi wants you to understand what this pattern looks like, because you will see it again. You will see it in different countries with different groups about different issues. The formula is always the same. Find a cause that sounds noble. Travel somewhere that sounds dangerous, but make sure you stay somewhere safe. Film everything. Post everything. Meet with the officials who have the most to gain from your visit. Avoid the people who would actually challenge your views. Go home. Collect the praise. The people left behind are never part of the story. They are the backdrop, the setting, the emotional scenery for someone else's content. The Cubans who have risked their lives trying to reach freedom deserve far better than to be used as props in someone else's political performance. The families who have lost people during those desperate attempts to cross the water deserve to have their stories told honestly, not buried under footage of activists sipping coffee in luxury hotels. There are Cubans who have spent years in prison for posting a video, for holding a sign, for speaking at a gathering, for refusing to chant the slogans they were told to chant. Those people exist right now. Some of them are in cells. Some of them disappeared quietly and the world never found out. Where is the solidarity for them? Where are the videos? Where is the outrage? It is absent. Because showing solidarity with those people would mean criticizing the government, and criticizing the government would undermine the entire purpose of the trip. This is why Kundi and the Pulse America News team believe it is so important to say clearly what others will not. What happened in Cuba was not activism, it was not humanitarian work, it was not solidarity. It was a group of privileged individuals using a suffering country as a backdrop for their own politics, while the people of that country remained in the dark, literally and figuratively, with no improvement in sight as a result of the visit. The real heroes in this story are the Cubans themselves, the ones who have not given up, the ones who continue to push for a better life under conditions most of us will never fully understand. The ones who wake up every day in a country where the government controls the power, and they still find ways to survive, to connect, to resist, and to hope. They deserve real attention, real reporting, real voices telling their real stories, not a five-star hotel visit packaged as revolution. That is what we do here at Pulse America News. We tell you the truth, even when it is uncomfortable. We cover the stories that matter. And tonight, the story that matters is this. Real solidarity does not come with room service, and the people who truly need help are almost never the ones holding the camera. Stay with Pulse America News for more coverage on the stories shaping our world. Your anchor Kundi will be right here, keeping it honest, keeping it real, and keeping you informed.